Estelle wakes up to find Joshua gone. While travelling back to Roland, she meets and talks to Father Kevin, a travelling priest of the Septian Church. Arriving home, she finds no one. Cassius arrives and comforts his daughter, who pledges to take on Ouroboros to save Joshua. Cassius supports her by sending her to a training camp for bracers in Le Mans, the state where the Bracer HQ is located. Estelle, alongside Annalise, one of the bracers she met at the tournament, trained together over the course of 2 months. After completing their training, the two return to Grantil and Estelle begins her journey to locate Ouroboros. We as the player then witness a meeting between Weissman, Lawrence, whose real name is Louvet, and Campanella, Enforcer Zero of Ouroboros at an unknown location within Liberal. We then cut to Joshua and the Kapur bandits in southern Arabonia placing flowers at a grave. We begin the chapter with Captain Schwartz, who's escorting Kevin to the reverie in the Grantil Castle depths. He comments that he's seen something like this before in Calvert. We then return to Estelle, who decides to investigate Ouroboros in Rouen with either Scheherazade or Agathe, while Annalise and the other person Estelle doesn't choose investigate in Roland. While in Rouen, Jean mentions how there have been signs of a ghost over Rouen. It's during this investigation Olivia and then later Chloe join the party. Estelle witnesses the ghost herself, and so the group follow it underneath the old building at Genis Royal Academy. They then meet Blanc, Enforcer 10, who has been the ghost. He's been experimenting with a gospel which projects a hologram of himself, which was the ghost the people in Rouen had been seeing. Upon defeating the archaism he summoned, Blanc flees and Estelle and co return to the guild, where they are tasked with moving to Zeiss to continue their investigation. We then see Blanc and Louvet talking in the night about these experiments, before they are interrupted by a presence and disperse. Luckily, Kevin, who was eavesdropping, was not caught. When Estelle and co arrive in Zeiss, they experience an earthquake. They meet with Kilika, who informs them that multiple earthquakes have hit the Zeiss region recently, but no other region has experienced such a thing. She wishes for them to investigate the phenomenon. Professor Russell theorizes that someone is manipulating the septium veins, which causes Tita to join the group. After some research, Professor Russell deduces that the origin of the earthquake seemed to be around Elmo village. Estelle and co then stumble upon a cave near the village where they meet a man. His name is Walter, Enforcer 8, who has been using a gospel to trigger the earthquakes before summoning creatures to attack the group. After defeating them, Walter strikes the group and with only a single hit has them all on their knees before Zinn jumps in to save the group. When the group returns to the guild, they are ordered to move to Grantil to continue their investigation. While on their way to Grantil, Zinn explains to Estelle that he and Kilka once knew Walter as they were all studied the same title cell of martial arts. However, Walter began to seek more power before killing their master, Kilka's father, and then leaving. After arriving in Grantil, Elnan informs the group that there's a child who is missing her parents at the Herb Royal Villa. They make their way before meeting a girl named Ren. As her parents have yet to be found, they bring her back to the Bracer Guild where she and Tita remain upstairs. The group is instructed to investigate a situation where multiple parties, including foreign bodies, were sent threatening letters before the signing of the Non-Aggression Pact. This is an agreement where Liberal will share their technology with Erebonia and Calvert to prevent violence and invasions from both superpowers, especially in regard to the state of Crossbell. After a failed attempt of finding the sender of these threats, nor Ren's parents, the group decide to sleep things over. Meanwhile, Annalise and the partner you didn't choose come across a campsite with some Ouroboros soldiers in Bose. The two defeat the soldiers, when Campanella greets the two before decimating the defeated soldiers and vanishing. We then find out Joshua and the Kapur family again defeating the same kind of soldiers. The next day, Estelle and co have to find a missing Ren before finding her. Before entering the guild, Ren gives Estelle a letter who said was given to her by a boy with black hair. Estelle believes this to be Joshua and goes to Gurun Gate after reading the letter. However, she finds Kevin, who had a similar letter before both are assaulted by archaisms, but manages to defeat them. Estelle and Kevin bump into Philip, who is looking for the Duke, but when they return to the guild, they find everyone unconscious. They find a letter explaining that the Duke and Ren have been taken hostage, so Estelle, Kevin and Scheherazade head to the warehouses where ex-Captain Amalthea plans to invade Grantil Castle with an orbital tank demanding the release of ex-Colonel Richard. It's not until the Royal Army try to stop her that Canon uses a gospel to trigger a similar orbital outage seen back in first chapter. However, Kevin uses a Kronos rod confiscated from Mayor Delmore to disable the gospel. Julia then joins the party where the group defeat the tank and Duke Dunan is free. But when Estelle questions where Ren is, Canon is confused until Ren is spotted above the warehouse and reveals that she is the mastermind behind everything that had happened, from the threatening letters, knocking the guild unconscious, and the kidnapping of the Duke. For she is Ren, Enforcer 15 of Ouroboros before taking her leave with Patamata, a giant mech that she views as her true guardian. Everyone returns to the guild where Kevin reveals that he's actually a Dominion. These are individuals part of the Grol's Ritter, which is part of the Septium Church, who are responsible for hunting heretics and people who use artifacts. Kevin trusts the group with this information as it's not widely known, but more importantly, he was tasked with investigating Ouroboros, so they should team up. Before heading to Bose to continue their investigation, Dorothy shows Estelle a picture she caught up the night before. In the photo shows Joshua with the Kapur family flying their bobcat. En route to Bose, the airship is forced to stop at Roland due to heavy fog. While at the guild, Mayor Claus storms in alarmed that multiple people within the city have been falling unconscious since the fog has loomed over the city. Estelle and co begin to investigate the phenomenon until they get a lead from a bracer about hearing a bell near Mistwald. The group make their way through the forest when they are surrounded by fog and feel like as if they are going in circles, until they find a gospel on a giant tree. But before they can grab it, the whole group fall unconscious and we see Estelle have a dream where she was younger when her mother was still alive. After waking, Luciola, Enforcer 6, makes her introduction to the group. Scheherazade is surprised as Luciola was like a sister to her as they both came from the same travelling circus. Luciola was using the gospel with her illusion magic to cast the fog over Roland and put the residents into a deep sleep, though the figure in front of them was only an illusion herself. We then see Louvet and Weissman enter a cave preparing for the final experiment. Estelle and co make their way to Bose where Legrand warns the group that a dangerous monster has been appearing recently within the area. All of a sudden, they hear a powerful roar and run outside to witness Louvet riding a dragon and crashing on top of the Bose market. Louvet introduces himself as the group as Enforcer 2 before running away with Agate chasing the dragon down. The guild then receives a call from Ravennew village of the dragon attacking, but before the group can arrive, the dragon had already charred all of their crops before heading north. Agate manages to catch up to Louvet and the two begin to duel, but Agate is no match for Louvet before snapping his blade in two. The group catch up to Agate before the military make their arrival, but Louvet and the dragon escape. General Morgan warns the Bracers to not get too involved, which causes Agate to target his frustration at the man for the military's inability to save people before collapsing. Back at the village, the general explains that during the 100 Days War, Ravennew village was caught up in the Erebonian invasion, and this caused the death of many people, including Mishka Krosna, Agate's little sister. General Morgan then agrees to work with the Bracers to handle the dragon problem. With the help of the Royal Army's Arsail, they use tranquilizers to sedate the dragon. But when they think they have got the dragon under control, a gospel triggers the dragon to awake and fly away, while the Arsail chases the dragon. Even at the top speed, the dragon gets away. The group make their way to Nabar Valley and they find the dragon, and after a long battle break the gospel free in the beast. He then introduces himself as Ragnar, the holy beast of the Septarian, before apologizing for what he had done and flies away. Legrand gets intel from Kurt that they believe they know the location of Ouroboros' hideout. However, since the group had been working so hard recently, he recommends that they take a break at Valeria Lake. They rest until Kurt appears injured and lacks part of his memory once again, until Karen steps in to help him using thaumaturgy. Kurt then explains that Ouroboros' base is located off the lake and has remained hidden using a projection. However, the other members of Kurt's squad were defeated after they attempted to infiltrate the facility but were defeated. Estelle, Kevin, and two allies of your choosing make their way through the hideout and manage to find and cure Grant, Kana, and Annalise before stumbling across Joshua. However, this is a decoy and Weissman knocks the group out using gas and kidnaps Estelle, bringing her onto their ship, the Glorious. Estelle awakes and is greeted by Ren, who takes her to meet Weissman. He introduces himself as Anguis III of Ouroboros before the other enforcers appear and invite Estelle to join their ranks. Estelle returns to her room where Louvet explains that she is unfit to be an enforcer as she lacks the darkness to become one. He then begins to share the source of his darkness. 10 years ago, Louvet lived with Joshua and his sister Karen in a small village called Hamal in Erebonia. However, one night the village was attacked and while trying to escape, he bore witness to the death of Karen who he loved, who had shielded Joshua. As the men raiding the village had Liberalian weaponry, Erebonia declared war with Liberal, which then sparked the 100 Days War. But in reality, those men were not Liberalians, rather they were Jaegers hired by warhawks within the Empire who wanted a reason to invade Liberal. As a result, Erebonia executed those involved with the scheme and made a pledge with Liberal to never make mention of Hamal by pretending that the village was destroyed by a landslide instead. Soon after, Estelle plans to escape but is stopped by Gilbert, who has joined the Enhanced Jaegers. But then, Joshua disguised as an Enhanced Jaeger comes out to help Estelle, where the two make their way to hijack an airship and escape. They end up landing on Gull Seaside Way before the two have a heart-to-heart conversation where Estelle refuses to let Joshua go and for the two to promise to protect one another. Estelle and Joshua reunite with the whole group at Gransell Castle. That is, until Julia interrupts their reunion to inform Queen Alicia that something strange is happening with the Tetrasilic Towers. Before the group can begin their investigation, Olivia leaves as he is needed back in Erebonia. Estelle and co begin to investigate each tower with the interiors having been completely changed, with the space warping their surroundings. At the top of each tower, a previous enforcer awaits for them. The first is Blanc, then Walter, then Luciola, and finally Ren. After facing against all of them, the group return to the Arsail, where they are interrupted by Weissman, who tells them to head to the deck to bear witness to a real miracle. The entire group rush outside, where a floating city unravels from another dimension over Valeria Lake. Professor Russell demands Julia to land the Arsail, who does so in the nick of time, as the floating city begins to expel a force that absorbs all ultimate power over the entire country of Liberal and the borders of Erebonia and Calvad. and in the distance, the Glorious is seen flying towards the city, unaffected by the orbital blackout as Weissman and the other enforcers gawk in amazement over the power of a Septarian. Since Liberl relied on orbital energy for many things, the citizens are, as you expect, very annoyed as all public transport has stopped working and this is affecting the economy as nothing can be traded. Luckily, Professor Russell has developed a zero-field generator which reverses the effect of the orbital shutdown phenomenon in a small area. He proceeds to give Estelle and Co 6 of these generators, as it's in their mission to travel across the Burl to hand over one for each Bracer Guild in each region. After providing the guild branches at Roland, Bose, Ruin, and Zeiss, the group head for Grantsel. But while on their way, Ouroboros begin the invasion of Grantsel, with them wiping out the royal guards with ease as they head towards the castle. By the time the group get to Grantsel, the city is in flames and the enforcers have infiltrated the castle. By the time the group catches up, Queen Alicia and Princess Claudia are held captive, though luckily, with the help of Sid and Alan, both are rescued. The enforcers then make their leave. However, before the group can take a breather, they hear reports that Erebonia has approached the border at Hacking Gate with steam tanks. Princess Claudia goes as representative of Liberl, while the group go as her escorts. General Morgan questions what Erebonia is doing as they had signed the Non-Aggression Pact. However, General Vander explains southern Erebonia has been affected by the orbital shutdown phenomenon as well. Princess Claudia intercepts their conversation by explaining that the Liberlian army has already dealt with Ouroboros' plans already. However, the Prince of Erebonia, Prince Olivert, makes his appearance and counters Princess Claudia's point. Ultimately, with the help of Estelle, they are able to convince Olivert to give Liberl enough time to deal with the floating city before Erebonia's intervention. Estelle and Co make their way to the Liber Arc before Ouroboros try to shoot them down, but they manage to land on the floating city by the skin of their teeth. Estelle and Co then begin to explore the city when they find Josette. She then explains that the Bobcat ended up crashing on the city during the orbital shutdown phenomenon, and how Ouroboros have kidnapped her brothers. The group continue their investigation until they come across the Glorious and end up saving the Kapoor brothers. The group then heads towards the Axis Tower and begin climbing it, where they will face off against each enforcer. The first is LeBlanc, who leaves after his mask is broken. The next is Walter. He reveals that their master had confided in Walter, saying that Zin would be the strongest candidate for Kilika's partner, who would then also take over the dojo, as he was the strongest. However, their master was diagnosed with cancer and wished to end his life in the battle with his greatest student, Walter. The two then decide to settle things once and for all, but Zin is the one who is victorious in the end. Next is Luciola, who reveals that she was the one who killed Mr. Harvey. The reason for this was because the ringleader had shared with Luciola that he had amassed a great amount of debt while running the circus. He would then be leaving as to prevent the other performers from suffering the consequences. Though after this confession, Luciola admits to falling in love with the man, though he rejects her confession for he only saw her as a daughter. As a result, Luciola used her illusion magic to fake the timing of his death and to provide herself with an alibi. After telling this to Shahrazad, Luciola decides to jump off the Axis pillar. Ren is up next, who's angered by Estelle's ignorance for labelling Ouroboros as an evil organisation. This is because when Ren was younger, her parents abandoned her and she was later abused by adults. It wasn't until Ouroboros rescued her that she pleaded her alliance with the society as she saw them as her real family. Upon defeat, Ren accuses Estelle as being like adults in her past, though the pain Estelle inflicts on Ren is not out of malice but rather because she cares for the young girl, who seems to have never been given the love that she deserved. Ren is confused by Estelle's affection and flies away with Patamata, reflecting on the ordeal. The final enforcer that remains is Luve, whom is surprised by Joshua for he has found the burning passion that was once lost when he was a child. After battle, the two engage in a one-on-one duel, with Joshua standing victorious. Luve is pleased with Joshua's conviction and opts to leave Ouroboros, but this is before Weissman appears and attacks him and triggers the stigma within Joshua, returning to Weissman's side. After catching up to Weissman, he begins to explain the truth behind the Liber Arc. Over 1,200 years ago, Adios bestowed humanity 7 treasures known as Septarians across the land that were able to grant miracles, each treasure corresponding to a different element, with the one being behind him being the Septarian of space, the Oriel. The Oriel had the ability to grant the ancient civilization people anything that they desired. But, over time, the population began to lose their purpose in life, for they had everything that they ever needed. This led to the population falling into chaos until Chloe's ancestors helped with banishing the Oriel into another dimension to obtain their purpose back. It's Weissman's plan to use the Oriel for its intended purpose and allow humanity to thrive without having self-sabotage in the form of unwanted emotions. Estelle objects to Weissman's plan, for emotion is the building block for human connection and friendship, and without it, humanity would never properly advance. Annoyed with Estelle, Weissman tests her hypothesis that friendship can overpower anything by forcing Joshua to kill Estelle and see if her relationship with him can overpower the mind control Weissman has on Joshua. Luckily though, thanks to Cassius and Kevin, they were able to predict that Weissman would try to use Joshua's stigma again, so they were able to free Joshua. As a last resort, Weissman fuses with the Oriole and transforms himself into an angel. From the power of the Septurion, no attack can harm Weissman. That is until Luve appears and uses his Kunvita that is forged using the divergent laws by the Grand Master of Ouroboros. By using it, he's able to shatter Weissman's barrier. The reason for this attack was because Luve had deduced that Weissman had a role within the Hamal incident. It's then revealed that Weissman was the one who introduced the Jaegers to the Imperial Warhawks. After defeating Angel Weissman, the Oriole disappears with Weissman confused as to what had happened before fleeing. Though because the Oriole had vanished, that meant the power source that was holding the Liber Arc floated was no longer active. Luve is too injured to escape and says his final goodbye to Joshua before everyone begins to evacuate. We then see Karen approach Weissman, who is confused for the Grand Master's prophecy had not come true. Karen then declares Weissman as a heretic before shooting him and turning the man into a pile of salt. Campanella then arrives, though takes no mind of Kevin for he only wishes to retrieve the staff that Weissman once used before retreating. We return to the group evacuating when Estelle and Joshua fall behind and the path in front of them is destroyed. As a last resort, they begin heading another way, trying to find another route. Though all is lost when the final path crumbles before them. While standing on an unstable pillar, they realise how dire the situation is. They then embrace one another for this will most likely be the last moments alive before they begin to fall, but by Aelios' will, the two are saved by Cassius, Ryan, Ragnar. The final scene has Estelle and Joshua returning to Hamal. They visit Karen's grave where they bring Luve's sword so the two can be with each other in the afterlife. The two then hold hands as they plan to try and find Ren.